Good evening and welcome. Today is Tuesday, March 22nd. This is the Hendrick Hudson Board of Ed meeting. If you could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are presently in session, so our first step, can I get a motion to approve the agenda, not the items on, but the agenda as presented? Second. All those in favor? Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda? We have professional personnel number 2, 3.3 number 2. Are there any other items anybody would like pulled? No? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the items not pulled from the consent agenda? So second. Those in favor? The professional personnel point 2 is the appointment of a new social worker, which we ask Lynn to please speak to. Ms. Ravelli.
Good evening. Back in January, late January, you as Board of Ed allowed for Mr. Mack and I to move forward with appointing and going through the interview process for a full-time social worker position at the high school. We thank you. I know our parents will thank you. I know our kids will thank you, as well as our staff. Before you this evening, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Megan Brenner. She is our new school social worker at the high school. Megan comes from Putnam Valley High School in a similar role, serving students with social emotional needs and also students experiencing substance abuse issues. She's done extra training in the area of trauma, social emotional curriculum writing, transition, and much, much more. I have to say that we're so excited for her to be joining the clinical related services team as we move forward with our initiatives in mental health and mental health well-being. So we welcome you, Megan Brenner. She rose to the top in the interview process with her fervent energy, her passion for social work, and her commitment to kids.
Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome to the district. Well, I guess we should vote on you first and then. Can I get a motion to approve 3.3 number 2, the appointment of a social worker to the district?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Welcome. That brings us to the items that were removed, and that is 2 donations. The first is a $225 donation from the Westchester Foundation of Autism and Related Developmental Delays Organization, and they are providing some support to our ABC program, which has been a tremendous asset to our district, and we thank the Westchester Foundation for Autism for their support of that. The second is a donation from the Hendrick Hudson Ice Hockey Club from a community member and to increase the budget. And that's, again, supporting our ice hockey, our team, our club, and our team. And again, thank you to the club and to the parent who made this donation on behalf of the students who play and our district as a whole. Can I get a motion to approve these 2 contributions? Second. All those in favor?
And with that act by the board, I'd like to welcome Caroline Almeida, our Assistant Director of Pupil Personnel. It's not often that groups and individuals who make donations to the school district show up live to put a face to the name and background information. So this is a very special donation to the district, and I'll let Caroline fill us in.
Yes, thank you and good evening. We are honored because Veronica Mayo, who is our certified occupational therapy assistant in our academics, behavior, and communication program, was recently honored by the Westchester Foundation for Autism. And she was given a very special award. I have it here tonight. It's the Mary Louise Weiner Memorial Award for Community Service. And it was presented to Veronica Mayo on behalf of her wonderful work here in the district for students with autism. And it was presented back in November and made with a donation to the district for outstanding support and dedication to the autism community. And so I just want to bring Veronica up and thank her publicly for the wonderful work that she's doing. One of the main reasons for the success of the program, our program has the support of the Board of Education and this community and people who work every day with the students, who understand the students, who go out of their way to make sure that those students' needs are being met. And Veronica exemplifies that. So I'll let her hold on to the award, and if you want to say a few words, go right ahead. And just want to thank you for your service.
I'll be quick. I started here about 5 years ago. When they told me about the collaborative approach, I thought that's a really great idea. And now that I've been in it for 5 years, it's exactly what I want to do. I love working with the students as well as my colleagues. And it's because of them that the program has been so successful. From 2 classes, moving on to 4 classes. And every day I come to work, and that's exactly what I want to do, work with those students every day. And 5 classes next. So thank you. And we will use the funds for the students as well as the teachers in the program. Thank you so much.
And thank you for your dedication. I mean, that's, as you said, it's part of why this program is as successful as it is. And it's truly been an asset to the children and the families of this district. So thank you.
Thank you for your support.
That would bring us to our, I believe that would be the superintendent's audience comments. Audience comments? Any? Superintendent.
Yeah, superintendent's report. A number of updates and some accolades. First, our spring sports are in full swing. It's great to see everyone outside, knock on wood. The weather has cooperated. As you may remember, last year we were networking deals with area high schools and colleges and universities to borrow turf field space so our lacrosse teams could practice and baseball and softball teams. So it's nice to have everyone out in our own yard. Speaking of which, I've received a lot of compliments about the condition of our fields. The main field, the stadium field at the high school, and the lower fields at Frank G. They had a very good winter. They were covered, and they've recovered very nicely. So to Mr. Merlini and his grounds crew, a thank you from all of the kids and the parents who sometimes don't often give those compliments. Next month will be our 3 through 8 testing in mid-April. Some changes to the state assessments based on some feedback and surveys and a whole lot of advocacy. 2 big changes to expect in middle school and elementary school. There will be fewer questions on the math and ELA exam, and the tests will be untimed, which sound like a great thing for kids. It reduces a lot of stress and allows them to work at their own pace. It's going to be a little bit of a planning and logistics challenge for our classrooms, in particular students who do need test mods, because with an untimed test, I think attention spans are going to be challenged, and how we rotate kids out of the classroom to move on with the rest of their day may be a challenge. So it's certainly a benefit and a nice tip of the cap from state ed, but it's going to create some challenges for us. But we're looking forward to seeing how these new tests lay out. High School Musical will kick off on Friday, the 8th of April. A Friday show, 2 shows Saturday, and a Sunday matinee. Last year, we had some weather and we had to cancel one of the performances, so we hope that the weather will cooperate and the crew will be able to get in all 4 shows. Recently, as today and yesterday, we conducted some audio interviews that we posted online and on our website. We have a middle school team called Team VIPs, which is an acronym for their 5 names of some sharp 7th graders. They are on their way to the state championship meet the weekend of April 9th at SUNY Binghamton. And if they win their division, which I believe they're going to compete in the improvisation division, they will go to the World Challenge event at University of Tennessee in Knoxville. So We have a little 10-minute audio interview with those girls that just got posted this morning. 2 weeks ago, some of our science research students finished in the top 5 in their respective categories at the Westchester County Science Research Fair. We're meeting with those students to conduct those interviews, so again, more accolades for our STEM program at the high school. And lastly, if you heard sirens and if you saw lights and fire trucks and everything else around 2:30 yesterday, our cheer team received an escort from the fire hall right up to the front door here in the high school. The cheer team took first place at the Myrtle Beach National Invitational last weekend, and we will certainly, we're getting some information and some quotes from the girls and some pictures. We'll do a nice layout for our community, and we'll even invite them to a board. So,
I have one more thing.
Yep.
Did you mention that you be the chemist challenge the last time?
Oh my goodness! I think last time I did, but You Be the Chemist Challenge, we had a middle schooler win the middle school division, 2 of them, and we did a nice little spread on those youngsters there on Facebook and on the website. It's nice that we got back involved with You Be the Chemist Challenge. We had a little hiatus for a few years, but that's a partnership with BASF and starting to start the pipeline a little bit earlier for kids, and that's been the goal. We've had too many experiences where kids show up to the high school and they're oftentimes overwhelmed by the opportunities they have. Creating these opportunities at a younger age where we're allowed to create those interests and pipelines early. So I'll leave it at that because we have some presentations to get to.
Thank you. That brings us to our committee reports. Any to discuss?
I went to the Blue Mountain Middle School PTA meeting last night, and Mr. Owens did a very nice presentation on internet safety and responsible social media usage. It was unfortunately a very poorly attended meeting, but it was a very well presented meeting, and there was a lot of very interesting information.
Well, it's critical, just getting back the word out on that, so. I don't think you're on. He's good, he says you're good.
Good? Okay. I attended the safety committee meeting last week. Basically, Anthony went over, he was at the convention up in, or meeting up in Albany, just went over some of the things that they discussed there. One of the key point that came out of our meeting was the pipeline, the work that's going on there, and I brought up the issue, I made the district aware. And the school's been aware there's been increased sightings of coyotes, and just to make everybody aware, especially with the kids out on the playgrounds, to make sure coaches as well as staff keeping an eye on the kids, because over at BV, here at G. Lindsay, as well as Place Woods and Blue Mountain, there are increased sightings of the coyotes.
So it's surrounded by woods, yeah.
Yeah, so just very good, be safe.
Thank you.
You know, there's actually some
Scared
good,
us all.
there's some good videos on the web about how to signal to a coyote to stay away. You stand up and get loud. You don't have to chase them, but you have to stand up and get really loud. There's a couple of guys that have done them in one of those, Carol.
I've seen a couple of them,
And they're,
little videos, yeah.
yeah, and it's useful information to know, because I've had one behind my house quite often. If you stand up and you're very loud, and gently push it, they'll move away. But if there are other things you can do that encourage them to come back. So that's leaving your pet food outside, or garbage bags outside. They come, so that's good. Thank you. To bring back Reed, there's a letter that they published. We talked about it in finance the other day. I don't know if we need to do a resolution, but they'd like for all the districts to sign it, the superintendent, the assistant superintendent for business, and board president, and then they'll collate them and send them in the districts that we're part of. And it talks about the tax levy cap, not in the sense that it's unavoidable, we want to take it away, but there are a lot of things about it, like how many districts are now in a negative tax levy cap. There are a lot of unintended consequences about it. It's just a letter to legislators on how to improve it so that it doesn't harm districts, instead of in the pursuit of reducing the tax levy. So
Perhaps.
I'll send the electronic one to you. I don't know if we have to do a resolution for the three.
Well, I was going to say perhaps Roseanne can, if you can just include it with our board packets, and then everybody gets a copy, and we can just go from there.
Well, I handed it out last time, but we need to sign it by the 31st. I'd like to get it by. So we're coming back to
That's a
the
week.
30th.
Okay.
I have one more question. Mrs. Miller is still looking for volunteers for Career Day for the middle school, which I believe is May 20th. You can still sign up for that, even if you can only do 1 or 2 classes during that day, and you do not have to have kids in the district to participate. So it doesn't matter what kind of job you have, if you're willing to share experiences with our middle school kids, that would be greatly appreciated.
And they feed you.
If you're there at lunchtime.
If you're there.
Yeah?
Well, thank
Yeah,
you.
bring the equipment. They would love it if you brought the equipment.
Oh man, the kids would
Bring
be
a
lining
snack,
up.
sir.
Oh, they'd be lining up for that.
Are you kidding?
You'd be a hero.
Can they go in the cement mixer?
There you go.
Well,
Carnival
we
ride.
did like
On the
that- we did
wheel.
like that 11-year-old in Minnesota the other day, took it for a joyride, yeah.
Oh, good
So we
lord.
don't want that.
No. That'd be a lot to explain. All right, that brings us to our presentations, and the first would be the Enrichment and Horizons update.
So the next two presentations are sort of brief and they're updates. We have moved through our budget process pretty swimmingly, and we have allocated funding for a 1.0 teacher. And based on a lot of interest, not only at the board level, but programmatically and some changing requirements and mandates, our proposal is to use that 1.0 position for either to expand our enrichment program at the elementary and middle level, and or to expand our library media specialist program. So we're not in a position to make a recommendation yet. In fact, we may not be in a position until later in the spring, if not over the summer. But what we have committed to from a financial standpoint are the resources. So what we want to do is give you an update on the committee that Margaret's been leading in terms of enrichment. She's been meeting with a group of stakeholders around different models, how to strengthen our program, what research is saying about enrichment and opportunities for kids. And then she'll dovetail that into some options to strengthen or increase our library media service positions and what that would look like throughout our 5 schools.
Okay, so Enrichment Committee first, and as I think I shared before, this is a K-5 district committee. The membership is listed on that slide. We have representation from the 3 elementary schools with administrators. We also have teachers, including Valere Haviland, who's the district-wide gifted and talented teacher, parents from each of the elementary schools, and hopefully Carol will be joining us at the next meeting.
On my calendar.
We have not met on a day that worked for her, but we tried to arrange that for the April meeting so we can catch her up. We have been in touch with our emails and our handouts. So it's a well-rounded representation with lots of stakeholder views, and everyone seems to be working very well together to get to the work at hand. So the charge of the committee really centers around these 4 questions. What is the goal of our enrichment program? What are we trying to do by offering enrichment? What is our definition of giftedness? And there are many definitions of giftedness. It's a decision that we have to make as a community. How will we identify gifted students once we know what our definition is? What assessments will guide our decision? Will we have surveys that will go alongside standardized assessments to help us identify children who are gifted and talented by the definition Hendrick Hudson supports? And then lastly, once we have answered the first 3, what are our programmatic options based on the information that we've provided? So, the last meeting that we held, we all went home after the first meeting with homework to research what was going on in the region around us. And here is a brief summary of what we all learned. Everyone visited at least 1 or 2 school districts or called people to get information. Most of our colleagues are differentiating instruction in their core curriculum. So in the classroom, in the Common Core learning standards, they are finding ways to stretch children who already know the topic and break down learning for the kids who struggle. There is a pull-out program available in most districts, not all, for the truly advanced students. And that depends somewhat on grade level. Not all districts do at K-5. Most districts seem to focus more on the intermediate level as we do for grades 4 and 5. There is enrichment for all, sometimes in school during perhaps a lunch or recess period, and in many cases after school. Grade level access varies, as I said, by district, and most relied on some standardized assessment, a wide variety of standardized assessments, many still including the New York State ELA and math assessments as part of their screening to identify kids who would be part of the pull-out piece. So the conversation in the group moved more along the road of embracing a more inclusive approach to opportunities, and that came out of quite a few of the group members having spent time reading Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck. The principle behind that is that we can become smarter. We are not born in a fixed level of intelligence, and how do we help children identify what they are good at and then expand upon that. Looking at Renzulli's school-wide enrichment model, Renzulli is world-renowned for his work in the gifted and talented area. He is affiliated with UConn, has been his whole career. The school-wide enrichment model offers us a three-pronged approach to what we could do for the gifted and talented, but also a way of embracing kids who perhaps don't fit that specific profile, but with whom we'd like to work to help identify their talents. So this is just a little bit about the SEM. It is used around the globe in different formats. If you visit the website, you can take a look at some of the ways that many schools locally have interpreted his work, sometimes working with a specific population and using that three-pronged approach just with that targeted population, but many working beyond that targeted population to make sure that all students had an opportunity to pursue things that were interesting to them, to make some kind of idea for themselves about what pathway looked viable for them. Sometimes kids just don't have the opportunity to dip their hands in a lot of different wells, if you will, to figure out what's interesting and what they're good at. So that would be the purpose of the enrichment cluster. So where we are for our next meeting is to come back and think a little bit more. We went away once again with homework, articles to read and some videos to look at to try to think more deeply about what a three-pronged approach might look like in Hendrick Hudson. Again, looking at embedded differentiation in the core curriculum, a topic which we are already embracing as part of our curriculum mapping. Continuing the pull-out model and looking at what do we want that pull-out curriculum to look like and how will we decide which students get pulled out. And then kind of expanding on the enrichment clusters. What would that mean for us here? Would it be relegated to something that happened after school? In the reality of the SEM research, enrichment clusters happen during the school day to ensure that all children have an opportunity to be exposed to topics that are of interest to them. So we have, as you can see, quite a bit of conversation left to have. And we look forward to the next meeting the end of April, probably at least another meeting in May before we would be ready to make a recommendation to the superintendent. We would be happy to come back and present to you again as we move through the rest of the spring. And then determine what feedback we get from all of you, and then the timeline of any possible changes. I would rather move slowly and do it well than rush to get something in place and then be potentially unhappy with what we've done. So I think we're pretty like-minded in the group, so we'll see what the April meeting brings. So that's, any questions on enrichment? Yes, sir.
Embedded differentiation in the curriculum, we have to go back and relook at the curriculum?
If we add differentiation?
Yes, if you embed it into it, so we have to, I mean, we're working on the curriculum now.
Yeah.
Is that part of the growth mindset too?
It is. So I'll give you an example. In an ELA unit at the K-5 level, as we built the central curriculum map, and we work through the stages of UBD, we get to a point where we say, what will we do with students who come into this already understanding this? We can look for more challenging texts, perhaps, to engage that student. We can look at compacting a process. So if we have a student who knows a lot about the American Revolution, we might abbreviate their learning because they know so much about it and push them onto a topic that's related, but perhaps a stretch for that particular grade level. And then we can look at product. So how do children show us what they know? There are many ways besides paper and pencil for me to demonstrate my ability to understand a given topic. Can we give children choices and variety in the ways that they show that? So those are some of the questions that we're asking each other as we are writing maps. We're lucky because we have special ed teachers sitting with us at the table who are extremely helpful in helping us break down the learning. We have the ability to reach out to reading specialists, our ENL colleagues, to figure out how can we best address all of this diversity and still keep kids in a central focus.
So will we have to do professional development
Sure.
for teaching those concepts to the classroom teachers?
We will. There's lots of PD to come. When you're talking about a different text level, there's not so much PD, but when we're looking at things like compacting the curriculum and giving a child an opportunity to do an independent piece in a given topic, there may be folks who need some support in how to structure that and how to manage that while they're still managing the other children in the room. I would say that even looking at the different products in the ways that children can show what they know, I think we need all of us an opportunity to look at the different ways I can show that and accept those things. Sometimes we get locked into a 5-paragraph essay when there are wonderful media opportunities for me to perhaps create almost a mini documentary about something and show you what I know. So there's a little bit of holding each other's hand, if you will, and opening up horizons to more than just one way. And that's also a fun conversation to have. So it's been good mapping conversations.
And let me just fast forward real quick, Charles, to everything Margaret just said, and a series of very legitimate conversations in Albany at the State Education Department to make these sort of authentic assessments, real world and relevant, part of not just APPR, but part of how we assess kids in lieu of pencil and paper, fill in the bubble state assessments. Now that's a big mind shift, but it's what the field has been asking for, are the opportunity for kids to differentiate their learning by product, because right now, as I said, kids are going to take state assessments next month and they're all going to have to do it the same way. So there's grant money out there. We're partnering with BOCES to try to get in on the ground level, hoping the state ends up going there. But it's exactly what Margaret said, is being able to give kids different opportunities to show what they know, as long as the content remains the baseline. How they demonstrated, they provided some choice.
I just know just several years ago we did some going into classrooms and watching the classes work, and went to different schools, and that was one of the most exciting times for me as a board member, because there were a lot of classes doing differentiation at BV and at the middle school, especially in one of the special ed classes, and the kids, seeing them rotate around among their stations and work together in small groups, it was so fun, and they were enjoying it. I mean, they were happy. Maybe it was just because somebody different was coming in the room, but it was a different type of learning environment from what I remember when I was a kid. We were all stacked up in a bunch of seats, and so it was exciting to see. So I applaud that, and I'd like to see more of that.
Yes, we are increasingly trying to get to more of an active learner stance, where kids are not just passively receiving information, but creating that information, sharing that information with each other, and then doing something with that information. So hopefully, as we move through the mapping process and some side conversations around PD, those are the topics that we will be focusing on. Okay. Yeah. Questions?
Actually, I had one other comment.
Sure.
from that visit. What I remember was in the elementary school and the middle school, it was very active, the differentiation. And when it got to the high school, when we were observing classes, it was the passive reception again. This was 4 or 5 years ago, and I remember saying that when those kids get to the high school, it's going to be hard for those teachers to relate to them, because, or for them to relate to the teachers, because they've been coming up in a different way. So this is going to have to keep expanding.
I imagine it has, though, because the high schools, you got sci research, you've got engineering, you've got that biomed. That's a lot of hands-on, especially the sciences. There's a lot of, that part. I think there's I like to think that the kids' ability to give and take, to have the, to be conversational about it. I'd like to hope that's continued since it's been introduced, that they will continue doing that rather than step back.
I think having a K-12 conversation take place in the content areas would be helpful also for the high school teachers and the middle school teachers to all hear what's happening at different levels in the organization. I don't know that, I think we haven't really done that. Almost no one does vertical conversations as often as they should, and they're critical because I need to know what's coming to me so that I can be better prepared for that learner. And as an elementary teacher, I need to know what the expectations are as my students move forward so that I can try to figure out what my role is in getting them ready for that.
Well, I think that's a big piece of the enrichment.
Yeah.
Because, you've got a lot of kids that, or whether they're, they're moving faster or they're ready to move faster, they're on the cusp. Set them up so that they are ready to run when they get to, when they are presented with choices such as whether it's engineering or physics or biomed or the advanced math or whatever it is, so that they are ready to make that leap.
Sure.
So.
Okay. Robert.
So the second piece of this discussion is our staffing options for library media specialists. As you know, we have 3 full-time library media specialists throughout the 5 schools. The high school is mandated, and the State Education Department and Part 100 regs have mandates for high schools with certain enrollment size as well as middle school. So we'll walk you through our current staffing, who receives what, and then some staffing options for you to keep in the back of your brains as we continue to roll through the budget process.
So currently, the K-5 students receive library services 1 period per week for half of the year. And the way that breaks down is the K-2 students receive half a year of instruction in their fall semester. The 3-5 students receive their library instruction in the spring semester. Okay. The staffing options, this is what it looks like most right now in all of our schools. BV has 0.4 of service, Frank G 0.6, Furnace Woods 0.4, the middle school 0.6, the high school has a 1.0. That comes to the 3.0. And then Matthew gave us 3 options to look at. What would happen if we decided on adding a 0.5 librarian? You see the increases to each school slightly, 0.6. Frank G would go to 1.0. Furnace Woods would remain the same at 0.4. In his presentation, Blue Mountain actually drops by a 10th, and the high school must remain constant at a 1.0. We went to the 1.0, which was the recommendation 2 weeks ago. BV would increase to a 0.8, Frank G at a 1.0, Furnace Woods to 0.7, Blue Mountain would hold steady at 0.5, and again a 1 for the high school, which would give us 4 full-time librarians in the district. And then there's a 1.5 look. Basically, the elementary division remains the same, and the middle school increases to a 1.0.
You might be wondering why the current allocation at the middle school goes down in those 2 middle models. That's the enrollment gap that we have rolling through. It's not a cut. It's just a number of staff we need to meet fewer sections.
Implications: additional staffing would allow additional learning opportunities. Their inefficiencies due to travel could be reduced. Programs could be strengthened with a dedicated library media specialist. For example, things like coding, keyboarding, and the research skills attached to the Common Core Learning Standards would be areas that could be better addressed with increased library time.
So a couple models that, again, as we wrap up the deliberations with the Enrichment Committee, we pay very close attention at the end of the year and actually throughout the summer to any enrollment bubbles. As you remember, we received 60 new students to the district just in about a 10-week period last year from August to October. So it's fluid. We don't really like to make too many class size or projection decisions yet because we have a lot of kids coming and going. But when we move forward with a recommendation, you see what some of the staffing will look like, particularly at the elementary schools. And I think you've got one more.
I do.
Calendar.
I'm sorry, can I just, before we go on, you're talking about adding one person, and the question is how we're going to allocate that person, the immediate specialist and the enrichment. Whether it's one or the other or a split between the two. And I just think it's important, Enrique, I'd like your input, that this is sustainable and this is something that we would have, that we could continue this additional individual for a year over year. Because I don't want to just give something to somebody and take that away. Because that assurance is there.
We think that for the following years, unless DRS goes up substantially, we have the finances there. This year, we're doing very well in the expenses, so I think we're going to have a very good year if we stay the way we are. So if that's the case, and TRS and ERA stay stable, then I don't see any problem. That can be the only problem that I can foresee going forward in the following years. If it comes up a little bit, then we'll be able to manage it. But if it's another big jump, we'll have the same problem as every other school district. So I feel comfortable with one more.
Well, that's what I know that the board is it's very important that this is a decision that's made. Always we're looking long-term, not just this year.
Sure.
So, thank you very much.
Actually, I got a question. You said it as if it were set in stone to have one position. I didn't think that we'd agreed to just a number yet. Enrique made a recommendation of one, but the board as a whole didn't say, well, we want one or we want two. You made a recommendation. So, I think we still have a little talking to do about what it is we want, because there are other places in the budget we're adding 3 monitors for an extra $130,000. Our budget for monitors and chaperones is going up almost double. And there are places we could look at.
So you're suggesting,
I'm just saying that you said it as if it was set in stone.
well, my understanding was that we were looking at a single, individual, not single individual, a 1 point FTE,
Well,
one
we-
FTE. Not, we weren't looking at 2. We weren't looking beyond that. It was that again. This was presented, and again, forgive me if I'm wrong, as a choice. That this wasn't, both in the interest of conservative. So.
I think it had come up in prior discussions that if we wanted 2 full positions, we would have to dip into the reserve fund. And we hadn't really completed that discussion, but I think the general impression I got was that Enrique wasn't really comfortable with us doing that because it decreases some of the buffer. But I don't know that we had actually completed that discussion. So we were looking at the options of what one person would do for us.
Well, then, as we continue this discussion, if you could just, maybe not even now, you don't have to now, but just whether 2 people or, what these stats, that they're sustainable. Again, because these are decisions that we're making over long term. That's something that, again, we're not making this, we'll have a library media specialist for the next 2 years and then, say, I don't want to I'd rather put these things in place so that it's long. So if we could at least look at whether it's sustainable, whether it's on again, various scenarios, whether 1.0, 1.5, or 2.0, depending on, what those, and what it means to make those choices, one or the other. Whether we take it's 2 or 1.
So what I'm always worried is about what's next. We are managing our special ed department very well, but you don't know if for next year we're having less children than this year. But the following year it can be the opposite. So when we commit a person, we're committing the district and we're committing that person, because we don't want to let go of that person because it's difficult for her and it's difficult for the district. We have always an extra position in case we have to split. But again, when we have that position is, okay, we split this year, but maybe next year we don't. So it's not like we're carrying this position on a year-to-year basis. Here we'll have to carry this position. I'm not saying no, I'm just saying it will be difficult. Another position is another around $90,000 to $100,000. $100,000 is less than 0.2% increase in our TRS. It's not, in TRS, the increases could be 1% because the market hasn't done that well. Last year it was flat, the prior year it was 7%, the prior year, that is what we're working now, it was up 30. So that's my worry. I mean,
Well, again, that's just, I think, something that, and again, I think we need to just ensure, if when the time comes, if we can talk about those various scenarios and that it is sustainable, that would be just.
Also, what we can do is, the money's there, and instead of either we'll use it because we're doing very well in expenses this year, and then we can say, okay, this year our fund balance will grow by $200,000 more than expected. Then okay, then the following year I can take some money from there. I think that, like I said, a final discussion, you can make a final decision in June when I have a better idea, and I can tell you, you know what, we did very well this year. We have the extra money in the federal, in the fund balance for the following year, and then you decide. You say, okay, let's go for 2. That's my recommendation today. Making that decision, I think we might regret it because we don't have enough information.
Yeah, too many unknowns.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
One other thing to look back to, though, while I was talking about the cost, we're taking out the energy specialist position this year for $22,000. While we're looking at stuff, I want to look back at that again, because that's, according to the presentations we've seen, it saved us $250,000 every year. So I'd like to be very careful, because that's $250,000 that could creep up in energy costs next year. So, and when is the time frame that we have to make these decisions? Once the budget is committed, it has positions, then we can't change it again after.
Well, we committed an expense. We commit the tax
total
cap.
expense.
We commit the tax cap formula. We commit the levy, which drives or then creates an expense number. And that's what Enrique was saying about these positions, 1 or 2. When we go out to voters in mid-May, we're essentially saying your taxes will go up X and it will yield Y in revenues. But there are some things that could happen from the vote until the end of the year that could create opportunities for us to, like Enrique just said, increase a
Numbers,
position
whether it be
or,
enrollment changes.
revisit a stipend or what have you.
So the allocations can still shift.
Oh, yeah, the allocations within the budget certainly can shift. So, I mean, similar to be honest, similar to, going back to the social worker, Megan, who we just hired, there were conditions that shifted in our favor early in this fiscal year that allowed us the opportunity to create the position in January and, able to sustain it not only for this year, but then add it into the budget for next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll hit pause on finances and we'll go to everyone's favorite topic, which is the school district calendar. I know this was this has been a challenge for every district. We have zeroed in on what we believe to be not only a calendar that complies with all mandates and contracts, but also starts to create a culture and a conversation around creating additional time for professional learning. So I'll let Margaret take it from there and hopefully pass the calendar and be able to publish it.
Okay. I don't know if it's the way I'm looking at that one, because it's easier to see the shaded dates on this calendar. But the shaded dates,
Do you want a hard copy?
I have actually one in front of me, but I can see it here. I'm not sure if anybody else can see the difference. So the shaded dates are dates when there is no school for students. So we see that students begin the year on Tuesday, September 6th. Teachers will start on Friday the 2nd. And we continue to notice shadings through the calendar. The markings that are bolded around squares means that there is no school for students, but there are teachers expected to attend that day. So you'll note the 2nd, October 11th, November 8th, which is Election Day and our traditional Parent Conference Day. And as we go through the calendar, you'll see other dates where the square is emboldened, and that's what that refers to. The Jewish holidays all cluster in October this year, so we have 2 long weekends back to back. But we will be in on the 11th for a superintendent's conference day. Again, no school for students. There is right now scheduled a half day before Thanksgiving for students. The afternoon is PD for teachers. The days on the calendar, such as September 19th, December 5th, January 23rd, in this half view that you see, have squares that are bold around the edges and a diagonal through the middle. Those are our early release days for professional development. Children will be going home after lunch. So there is, I believe, at the bottom in the key, you can see the times of dismissal for each of the schools. Starting somewhere around 12:15. Oh, thank you so much. High school at 11:45, Frank G. and BV at 1, Blue Mountain at 12:10, and Furnace Woods at 12:15. That gives us an extended afternoon of PD, approximately 3 hours, as opposed to the usual 1 hour for a grade level meeting. So a lot more can be accomplished, and teachers are asking us for extended time for professional learning.
And let me just jump in. The reason on those Mondays is those are already pre-established faculty or grade level meetings. Staff are already here an additional hour after dismissal, so that chunk of time grows even more for uninterrupted opportunities.
I was going to ask you why.
Yeah, so as an example, at the elementary level, BB and Frank G, which would dismiss 45 minutes after Furnace Woods. So if we began our professional learning about 1:10, we have until 4:30. So that's a nice chunk of time for us to spend together. We were together today for our hour, and we all looked up and saw 4:30 and said, yikes, because we could have gone longer selecting texts for our new maps. So I think the teachers will be pleased to know that we have built into the map, with your approval, the extended learning days for them, which comes to roughly once every other month. And again, you see the full week at Christmas, you see a full week at February break. I'm so sorry to make you scroll back and forth. A full week at Easter, Passover and Easter this coming year, this 2017, will fall in the same week. With Passover, I believe the first night is the 10th, and then the holy days for the Christian calendar are the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. One day for Memorial Day, last day of school for students is June 23rd. And that's a half day. So we end up, once again, with 182 student days, 185 teacher days, and hopefully a good chunk of that will be some professional learning time.
the students will go full days until that Friday? It's usually there are half days on the middle of the week.
Yeah,
you know, sort of-
we usually publish a calendar in the beginning of June, particularly for the middle school. There are some Regents exams where there'll be half days. At the elementary level, there have to be half days per the contract for grading and reporting from one grade level to the next. But we usually publish those later in the spring.
This is just, I remember we always used to start and have 3 days the first week of school. Is a full week of school hard for the kindergartners?
I'm not sure. I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Huckrider, first week of September, isn't the elementary half day?
Yeah, the first day of school for elementary, so in this case the 6th is
Half day.
half day.
And then the rest are full days?
The rest are full days.
Okay. But you're right, there used to be, many years ago, a slower build.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And that's calendar. I don't know if we have any questions.
I think it looks great. There's some discussion about the, first off, the 11th. I know that is that still fluid? Is there any possibility that would change?
I don't think so.
Okay. And I'm just curious. And then the other was there was some discussion about some sort of activities or something, or something on those professional development days. Will there be, I understand that decision doesn't have to be made
Right.
today, but is there some consideration for alternative, rather than some of these kids going home? Whether
Well,
it's
so we're
moving
hoping
Mother
that-
Connection up?
Yeah, we're hoping that by publishing the early release days so far in advance, parents that are in need of childcare will have a long time to make that preparation. That being said, there's always an emergency or someone who can't. So we have started a conversation amongst ourselves with potential for maybe some children in need of hours in terms of, honor society and those types of kids who need to do that kind of volunteer work. We've reached out to Mother Connection and had a preliminary conversation about having them back up their start time to meet our dismissal time. So we do want to be creative, recognizing most of us are parents, so we know what that struggle can be like, and try to see if we can help bridge that gap. But we don't have anything
Honestly, I
permanent
would
in
take the
place.
approach, have to have those community service hours. I'll be honest, I think your honor societies and some of your clubs at the school would be more than happy to come down and do some,
Yes.
spend some time with these
Partner
kids and
with
give them the
PTA
instruction.
maybe
Yep.
do some
Mhm.
kind
Some
of
sort of-
voluntary, obviously after school activity.
Well, and that may be what we need to do, because we can't just have kids, even though they're honor society kids, supervise the kids
Right.
without an adult, and then that gets
Right.
into, well, the adults are,
Right.
in meetings or conferences, and, if we're not careful, we lose the benefit. But, so we know we'll have to partner with PTA or other staff that wouldn't be impacted by this.
We think we have some creative ways that we can try to make some things work, and then of course see how that works once it gets put in play. But we are grateful for the opportunities to have those 5 days.
Great, thank you very
Okay,
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this one we do need.
Okay. I was just informed, we do need to approve this calendar. Can I get a motion to approve the calendar as presented? Second? All those in favor? And that would bring us to our last presentation, which would be the final budget review.
Yes. So over the past number of months, we have been inundated with numbers and charts and shifting formulas from the state, and this is our final one that brings all of our program recommendations that you've heard from our various departments, and zeroes in on what the numbers will be that we'll need to publish for our budget notice and what the public will be voted on in mid-May.
Thank you, good evening. I know that some of our guests here cannot believe that taxes will go down, but they will. So, oh,
Good job.
so when we started our budget on January 11, we said that our preliminary budget was going to be $76.1 million. Today, we are at $75.8 million. We had several additions like we discussed, but also TRS came down more than we expected it, so that helped us substantially. If you remember last year, our budget was $74.4 million, so in January we were expecting a 2.4% increase. If you make no changes between this week and our next board meeting, our increase will be only 2%. And the interesting thing is the next contingent budget. If you look at our contingent budget, is higher than what our regular budget will be, and this is one of the issues that Charles talked about, that the way the tax cap is, it's hurting schools, and obviously it's hurting us because by not being in contingent budget, we're losing $197,000 in tax revenue.
Those two positions we're talking about.
And those are the two positions that we're talking about, exactly. So today, in January 11, we had a preliminary tax levy of $41 million. Today, it's 40.7. Last year, the tax levy was $40,959,000. So it's a reduction of 0.5% compared to last year. Our tax cap is $40.7 million, and the contingent tax cap is $40.9. So that means that we were to be in contingent, we would get $197,000 more. Our fund balance originally, we thought it was going to be about $1.8 million. Today, we think it's going to be 1.58, so $300,000 less than we expected. So our tax cap, if you look at it, if you look at the inflation, the New York State tax cap and our tax cap, you can see that every year since the tax cap started, we've been way below the inflation and the New York State tax cap. And this year, we're in negative. On the second graph, you can see how our budgets have increased, but again, our tax levy has been way below our budget increases. Over the last 2 years, basically zero, and next year it's going to be negative. Our state aid is expected to increase about 5.6%, and this is based on the governor's budget. Obviously, we will not know the final number until there's a final budget in Albany. So far, usually we get a better number than the original one, but this is the one that we know. Our BOCES aid is going down substantially because in the past years we made payments for the capital project and we finished. This year, actually, in a couple of weeks, we're going to issue a long-term debt to pay for those BOCES capital projects that we had to pay as part of one of the component districts. Our other income is growing up substantially thanks to our special education department, because we are projecting to have 5 students from other districts paying tuition to our special ed ABC programs. Our sales tax is money that we get from the county every time that you guys go and spend money, buy clothes, you pay tax. Supposedly all that is for school districts. Well, that's the way it started, but still we get a little bit of that, and that's the $850,000. Transfer is money that we get paid from our lunch fund, and we expect the same. And then the fund balance that we discussed in the prior slide. Our pilots will increase only 0.6%, and one of the reasons is that if you remember last year, we negotiated with Entergy a 10-year pilot program, and the increase will be the same as the New York State cap, so the increase was only 0.172%. So that will bring us at $35.1 million in non-property taxes, an increase of close to 5%. We already discussed the proposed budget that will increase 2%, and the tax levy that will decrease 0.5%. So, who's going to pay what? Our assessed valuation has stayed this year. This is for March. It's not the final one, but it stayed very flat compared to last year. So the total assessed valuation for Cortland is about $38 million. For the city of Peekskill is about 5.5, with a combined total assessed value of 44.4. The equalization rate, basically what the state is trying to do, and this is given by the state, is to say the same house in Cortland and in Peekskill, if I move one to the other place, we'll have to have the same amount of taxes, and therefore should be worth the same. So they are trying to say, to look at the increase in value on one against the other one, and then make a decision on what's the value. So for the first year in about 5 years, the town of Cortland, the increase was lower, so they are going to pay for the first time a lower rate than Peekskill. In this case, they will pay 93.03% of our taxes, and Peekskill will pay 6.97%. The tax rate for the town of Cortland is 983, or will be a decrease if nothing changes in the total assessment of 0.6%. Meanwhile, Peekskill will have an increase of 3.6%. I just want to remind the Peekskill citizens that their taxes in the last 3 years have come down 8%, so they still would be better off than 5 years ago. So, as we always do, I want to give you an estimate of what an average house will be paying in taxes next year. The average assessed value in the district is about $7,700 of assessed value. The tax rate for this year for town of Cortland is 983. Tax rate last year was 989. So last year, the citizens who have a house value in $7,700 of assessed value paid $7,600 in taxes. This year they will pay $7,500, a reduction of 45. Meanwhile, the Peekskill citizen last year paid $3,600. This year they will pay $3,726, an increase of about $129. That's it. Any questions?
So
Thank you for
So
including
sad.
the art.
This is, every year you check out some really great artwork from our students.
Thank you. All this art is from our student from the high school. I love to have it so we all remember why we're paying taxes.
Among other things.
Thank you for your hard work and everything.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the end of our meeting. Audience comments. Any board comments? Just follow up, our next meeting will be Wednesday, April 6th at the high school, I'm sorry, at the Free Library, because it will be the art show, so you may see some of this work in reality. It will be Wednesday. Tonight is Tuesday, so it will be a week, 2 weeks from tomorrow night. They'll be back on Wednesday. It will be at the Free Library. And in the interim, have a good holiday or break or whatever it is that you'll be doing in the next 2 weeks with your children who will be home for part of it. Can I get a motion to close?
Keeping your boys apart during the Miami, Maryland game?
Oh, good Lord. And then we got Notre Dame. We didn't even let her show up.
Syracuse sitting next to you.
Oh, there you go. It should be over.
Surprise, surprise.
So,
Oh, and Villanova from the PPS. department.
so this could, we got a whole lot of conversation here. It's almost as dangerous as politics.
It's almost like we planned this long weekend around the basketball tournament. All of our teams are still in
Imagine
it.
that.
Who would have thought?
Who'd have thunk?
I was rooting
Not
for
ours.
Lumberjack. two cousins and a
Darryl, what
nephew
happened to
graduated.
ours?
I was at the game.
Yeah,
Great game.
Cornell.
Did you go to Notre Dame?
I know.
Very nice. Carol's sitting there going, what's it? How'd Cornell do?
have no idea.
They did very well in wrestling, national championship.
There you go. And hockey.
Hockey did excellent.
They had,
Can I get a motion to close?
so moved.
Thank you very much. Second, all in favor?